So hi, welcome to another episode of Insights with NetSupport with me, Mark Anderson, Head of Education at NetSupport. And I am absolutely thrilled that these three individuals have come to find me and have a little chat here on the stand here at BET 2023. I have known two of these people for a very long time through social media, but if you know anything about my work, you'll know that I'm all about teaching and learning and impact with technology. And that is what these guys do in absolute spades at their school, Cornerstone C of E School, not based too far away from where I'm based as well, down in the southwest. I've got the head teacher here, Tim. Tim, what is it that you do with technology at the school? Because the way you lead on technology is inspirational. And I know so many people with your MIE hats on, your showcase school status, all these things. A lot of people look to you for what a good one looks like, to use an education phrase. How do you do it?
Well, I think part of it is we try and be really clear and authentic when we're telling our stories, because we make loads of mistakes. We are not experts in everything. And so we make sure that we're sharing those pitfalls and problems as well as the things that have worked well. But it's also for us very much about the why we do things. And for me as a head teacher, it's about making sure that the communication and the collaboration for staff is as effective as it can be, reducing workloads, overcoming barriers, allowing staff to really be able to focus on the teaching and learning, and then sort of transferring that into the classroom, working with the children, making it really exciting, engaging, enhancing the teaching and learning, again, removing barriers, providing solutions, and really upping that pupil voice and choice.
Brilliant stuff. And student voice is so important. What role do students play in the school in terms of how your technology is actually used and deployed? And
massive. And again, it's not just within the technology. So we have pupil voice groups that all the children are involved in. So just this term, for example, they're helping us review our whole school teaching for learning policy. We say, look, you're the experts. Year 6 realise they've sat in about 7,000 hours worth of lessons so far. So we're asking about what works well, what helps them learn things, what tools are most effective. So we have those. Then we have different leadership groups in our year 5 and 6. So we have a pupil leadership team who look at strategy across the school, but particularly from an edtech point of view, we have digital leaders. So they will be trialling out different tech first and then helping teach it. So they lead, for example, Hour of Code Minecraft afternoons. They're busy doing a whole range of microbit coding at the moment at Lunchtime Club. The aim being that then they're supporting us in supporting the other children learning how to use it.
Technology is clearly something which runs right through the fabric of the school, used purposefully, not just for the sake of it, but where it can actually make a difference. Tamara, can I ask you, your role in the school, you're a Key Stage 2 leader. You'll clearly still be in the classroom as well, though, right? Yeah. So how are you using technology to help make a difference to what you do as a teacher and to support learning and teaching in the classroom as well?
So really, I would say it all stems from our use of Microsoft Teams, and the children have their own accounts. That then means they can access all their home learning via Teams. We can chat to them via Teams. But equally, we use OneNote, and that's our main teaching tool. But then the children then use that. So for all our foundation learning, our history and our geography, they've been doing all of that on OneNote. So it's all electronic. That means they can pick it up at home. They can carry on with that. We use read in progress. So I've got a couple of children that really struggle in my class. But actually, reading to a computer and not having to read to an adult really makes a difference for them, because they then develop their confidence. And moving forward, obviously, in secondary is kind of where I look at it, teaching year 6, that we want them to have those skills when they go forward. If we can equip them with that at primary school, it really makes a difference moving forward with them.
Now, as a school, you're not just a beacon in your in a local area, I'm assuming, but you're definitely a beacon, not just nationally, but internationally. I see schools in the Middle East sort of championing, saying, oh, wow, look at this stuff and things. But thinking about transition, how well placed are your secondary schools? Because this is what I'm a secondary teacher by trade myself, right? And something I see now in my consultative work, often there are great primaries doing fantastic work with technology that isn't necessarily mirrored when they actually move up to secondary. How are your local sort of secondary schools placed to take on and push further forwards your learners beyond that? Are you able to answer that sort of question?
Yeah, I could probably give it a go. We've had lots of conversations actually as a 3 about what we do and the impact it has. So Henry and I and a couple of others, we rewrote our kind of coding curriculum last year, putting in place things that we know our secondary schools use. So we know our local secondary school uses microbits, which is why I've introduced that in year 5 and year 6. It's definitely interesting because chatting to children and their parents, they often say, you know, the secondary schools say, we know that children come from Cornerstone, the children. So actually, we are still seen as kind of a flagship with what we do. But certainly, we've been looking at how we can sort of fit in with that. And we're just starting to form the Hampshire EdTech Hub, aren't we? So actually, that's a way of hopefully getting a secondary school on board and building that relationship further to make sure what we're doing matches what they're doing.
Oh, brilliant stuff. That sounds amazing. So I feel bad, Henry. You haven't had a chance to speak yet. And he's like this. I know. But some might say I'm saving the best till last, but absolutely, obviously not.
Charming.
Hey, hand these off. Henry, look, I've known you as well for a very long time. I could ask you 101 questions, okay? But I'm going to ask you just the one. The show's called Insights. If I had a teacher who was like, all right, so, you know, these guys are using Teams and OneNote in primary, but I thought it was more of a tool for secondary. What insights can you share about the appropriateness of a Microsoft environment in primary? Because that's one of the things I hear people often say, Microsoft isn't really good for primary, right? And I think you're really well placed to counter that point of view. So can you share some insights as to why Microsoft is actually a really useful tool in a primary setting for our audience? Is that okay?
Yeah, so I think it comes from the element actually, because we use it as our teaching tool and we use it day to day as that teaching, the children are seeing that on every part of their lesson. So actually those skills they're building in, they're learning how OneNote can be used within our teaching, so that then they're transferring that to their home learning, whether it's their project learning that they're using. And actually it's at a differentiated level to what secondary schools use it at. You know, we don't necessarily use possibly every element of it, but actually we use what we use in a really effective way.
No, absolutely. And actually, you know, yes, reading progress, reading coach is useful in secondary, but again, I think it's fantastic for early years right through. And I've seen some fantastic work with reading coach, particularly with a lot of schools that I work in and what I see on social media as well.
And that's an interesting point that you say, actually. We use reading progress from year 3 to year 6, but actually children of that lower year 1, year 2, actually accessing Teams is quite a challenge. So actually the use of reading progress with immersive reader now actually accesses all of our children being able to gather data and gather AI that we can support those children with their learning. Absolutely.
And as a teacher, obviously, data is so important because it informs how we can best support, you know, because how Tamara learns will be different to how your progress is going with yours, same for you, Tim. So any sort of data we can pull through on that to help us to make those informed decisions with our kids can only be helpful, can't it? But thank you so much for giving some time up to come over and say hello. I'm sorry I kept you waiting. Guys, you do need to be following these people on social media. I don't know, Tamara, are you on social media?
I am, yeah.
So it's a new follower for me today, fantastic. Or new person for me to follow, sorry. But Tim, where can we find you on social media? Tim shares so much. Tim, where can we find you?
So on Twitter, I'm at Tim_Jump Clarke, and Jump is not my middle name, but it's my wife's maiden name.
So I was going to go for your love, but no, and no more singing. I do apologise. Henry, how can we find you on socials?
I am Penfold, as in Danger Mouse, no one.
Brilliant stuff. And that's the number 1 rather than as in no one, okay? And Tamara?
I'm also on Twitter. It's Miss T_Goddard, so you should be able to find me quite easy with that, I think.
Brilliant stuff. So some great advice, some great follows for social media. And thank you to you for joining us for another episode of Insights with NetSupport here live from BET 2023. Thanks for joining us.